So you want to catch more shiny Pokemon in Pokemon Go? Well, today we're going to be going through the best ways to get shiny Pokemon in Pokemon Go from the worst odds to the best odds. And specifically, what methods you should be focusing on that have higher shiny odds that will lead you to more encounters with them. Now do note all this information in this video is predicted from the community. So none of this confirmed by Niantic, but from years of research is what we've come up with. Let's get into it. Okay, the highest shiny odds in Pokemon Go are 1 in 512. These are considered the full odds. And these are actually really good shiny odds because compared to the main series games where the odds are 1 in 4,000, 1 in 500 is not bad. Now, generally most Pokemon in the wild are full odds Pokemon, and although there are certain exceptions, generally anytime you're going to be hunting Pokemon in the wild, it is full odds, so if you end up finding a shiny, that's a 1 in 500 chance. However, the odds are only going to get better from here, with our second odds being 1 in 256. These are the odds of encountering a shadow shiny Pokemon from regular Team Go Rocket grunts. A couple years ago, Niantic implemented shiny shadows from grunts, and now any Pokemon that has been a shiny shadow released from a leader can now be shiny shadow from grunts. Of course, Niantic didn't want to leave the odds absolutely insane, so they have boosted them a little bit, and there's about a 1 in 250 chance of getting them. So still, a lot of grunts you have to go through, but it is still a potential possibility. But there is an easier way to get shiny shadows, and we will talk about that further in the video. Okay, 1 in 128. What are the odds here? Well, these are odds for rare species. Niantic understands that certain rare species in Pokemon Go not as easy to encounter, so they've actually boosted the shiny odds on these Pokemon. This includes Pokemon like Gible, and also the shiny odds for the majority of Pokemon you catch in Mega Raids. Now that is one thing to mention, Mega Raids are kind of weird because there are some Pokemon with the 1 in 128 shiny odds and 1 in the 1 in 64 shiny odds. It just kind of depends, but generally any of the evolved forms of Mega Pokemon like a Charizard or a Venusaur are 1 in 128. Also, when Niantic does activate Shiny Melton during special events, Melton does take this shiny odds of the 1 in 128. So there's a couple Pokemon in this category here, but again, generally rare Pokemon and Mega Pokemon. But this moves us into one of the most common and one of the most effective strategies for hunting shiny Pokemon, the 1 in 64 shiny odds. Now these are known as the perma-boosted shinies, and there's a long list of Pokemon in Pokemon Go that are included in this list. This includes Pokemon like Onix, Lickitung, Chansey, Scyther, Pinsir, Ditto, Lapras, Pineco, Sneasel, Skarmory, Nincada, Mawile, Carvanha, Spinda, Phoebus, Absol, Clamperl, Beldum, Spiritomb, and the list goes on. I will link below a full list. These are odds for Pokemon that are generally rarely spawning in the wild, available generally in raids, or just like rare in the wild. Because if they're everywhere in the wild, everyone would always be getting shinies. If there's ever a Spotlight Hour, by the way, for these Pokemon, for example, a Bronzor Spotlight Hour, the odds are still boosted, and that's why people get so many shinies on Spotlight Hours for perma-boosted Pokemon. These are also the shiny odds for a shiny shadow Pokemon after defeating the leaders, Sierra, Arlo, and Cliff, as well as Jesse and James if those ever return. Also, a lot of baby Pokemon have the 1 in 64 shiny odds. This includes things like Togepi. Pretty much any Pokemon that is the baby Pokemon have these shiny odds. I will link below a full list if you want to get a full breakdown of every single Pokemon with the perm boosted shiny odds. And finally, this moves us into our best regular shiny odds, which are 1 in 20. Now these are the odds for encountering shiny legendaries, Ultra Beast, mythical Pokemon from Tier 5 or Primal and Mega Raids. Shadow Legendary Pokemon from Shadow Legendary Raids also have this shiny odds. Galarian birds that spawn from Daily Adventure instance will have this shiny odds, as well as the Lake Guardians when you encounter them in the wild. So pretty much think any legendary, mythical, Ultra Beast Pokemon has these shiny odds. Niantic understands that these Pokemon are expensive, hard to get. You can't get 500 encounters with a Dialga, so they've much boosted the shiny odds. Now these are all the shiny odds that are used 90% of the time, but shiny odds can change, and Niantic does have those triggers to make these changes. So what are the shiny odds during certain events and different features in Pokemon Go? Well, first of all, event boosted shiny odds, 1 in 256. These are the odds that were only used 2 times, including the Catch Mastery Fighting event and the Catch Mastery Ice event. These events for Niantic decided to boost the shiny odds for different research encounter Pokemon, and they ended up getting the 1 in 256 odds. Also, we have the 1 in 128 shiny odds returning during special boosted events. These are the odds featured during Pokemon Go Fest and Safari Zone global tie-ins, and also the shiny odds for most global Go Fest events. So when they do say there's going to be a shiny boost at a global Go Fest, it generally means it's going to be a 1 in 128 shiny boost. This is also generally the shiny odds they use when they say a shiny Pokemon is boosted in the wild. For example, during the recent Festival of Lights event and there was a shiny boost for Chinchou, it usually got this bonus. Of course, 1 in 64 shiny odds do return during special events. In-person Go Fest, pretty much every single Pokemon in the wild has a 1 in 64 shiny odds, as well as the in-person tour events. Also, there were some past global events that had this boost. Kanto Tour and Johto Tour all had the 1 in 64 odds, but since then Niantic has boosted, or I guess decreased, the shiny odds during the global tours to the 1 in 128. These are also the odds for any Pokemon from event boosted 7-kilometer eggs when eggs are boosted from those. We also have 1 in 25 rates. Of course, these are the classic Community Day shiny rates. Community Days are the best, or one of the best ways to grind shiny Pokemon, because it's a 1 in 25 odds on that Pokemon and they're everywhere in the wild. Finally, 1 in 10 shiny odds. These bonuses are during really limited times, including raid days, limited research events, and hatch days, but these are the best shiny odds we can get in Pokemon Go. 1 in 10. Usually, of course, they are locked around paid style events or events where you have to really work for it, but of course all possible. Now, with all these shiny odds and all this knowledge with us, you can focus on encountering Pokemon through the methods with the best odds, but there's also other things you can do to increase your chances. The number one, encounter more Pokemon. Of course, shiny odds is every time you click on a Pokemon, think of a dice being rolled with the amount of sides of those shiny odds. For example, 1 in 512. Every time you encounter a Pokemon, you're rolling that dice. So theoretically, you could go 1,000, 10,000 rolls and not hit that one side that's going to get you the shiny. But how we increase our odds is just by rolling that dice more times. This can be done with the quick catch method. When you catch Pokemon normally, it's going to take a decent amount of time for that ball to shake, all that stuff. But if you use the quick catch method, which allows you to skip the catching animation, this will allow you to catch Pokemon much quicker. The more Pokemon you catch, the more Pokemon you can encounter, the more shinies you can get. I'll link below a video on the quick catch method. Pretty much just involves you grabbing the berry tray, throwing the Pokeball, letting go of the berry tray, and then pressing the run button. But check a full video below, and definitely a strategy everybody should know. Also, of course, this goes in combination with clicking on every single Pokemon you see. I always recommend people to catch everything because it's going to get you Stardust Candy, XP, and all that stuff. But if you're just a shiny checker and if you just want shinies, clicking on every single Pokemon is going to vastly increase your shiny odds. People are always asking me like, I didn't get a shiny this day. I'm like, how many Pokemon do you click on? They're like 20. Makes sense. The odds are 1 in 512. The more Pokemon you click on, the more chance you're going to be rolling that dice to potentially get a shiny. Now, of course, not everyone can play Pokemon Go all the time, and this is where auto catchers come in and can be one of the best ways to get more shinies in Pokemon Go. I've always heard it. If you don't know what an auto catcher does, for example, the Pokemon Go Plus Plus, not only can it spin Pokestops automatically for you when your phone is in your pocket, but it can also throw one red ball at a Pokemon. If it catches that Pokemon, hooray. If it doesn't catch that Pokemon, that runs forever. The odds of the auto catchers are around 50%. Obviously, it goes up and down. It depends on the difficulty of that catch rate, but attaching an auto catcher and just walking around as you're going about your day, doing your errands, all that stuff, sometimes you'll end up looking back through your bag and end up with some shiny Pokemon. Now, a lot of people obviously are against auto catchers because they feel like you're not really playing Pokemon Go, but if you want to get more shinies in Pokemon Go, having something that's throwing Pokeballs for you while you're doing your other things in your daily life, it's going to work out. It can also even be an amazing method to try to encounter more Pokemon because, like I mentioned, during big events, not only can you be quick catching, but you can have that auto catcher running at the same time, kind of thinking as two people playing your account at the same time. And of course, the more Pokemon you encounter, the higher odds of getting a shiny you have. Okay, let's talk about events, starting with Spotlight Hour events. Every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m., there is usually an event called the Spotlight Hour. Think of it as a mini community day. Now, there's no boosted shiny odds on Spotlight Hour unless the Pokemon appearing in the wild is a perma-boosted Pokemon or a Pokemon with an already boosted shiny rate. However, it can be an amazing method to hunt for specific shiny Pokemon you might need. Because if, for example, we have a Love Disc Spotlight Hour coming out and you want shiny Love Disc, you're only going to be encountering Love Discs in Pokemon Go. One issue with Pokemon Go is if you want to hunt a specific shiny, you can't guarantee that you're going to be able to encounter that Pokemon over and over again, unlike in the main series games where you can just find where that Pokemon spawns. But Spotlight Hours is the best way around this, where you can find that one Pokemon and click over and over again. Also, when we do end up getting new shiny Pokemon come to Pokemon Go, sometimes Niantic will give them a Spotlight Hour. For example, Wooloo back in September 2024 just got released. It got a Spotlight Hour. So if you really want a new shiny, keep an eye out on the channel here. We'll update you when the Spotlight Hours are. Moving on to Raid Hours, another great event to really hunt specific shinies. Every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m., there's an event called the Raid Hour where all gyms will activate to a single legendary Pokemon, usually the Pokemon featured currently in raids. Each gym will spawn 2 raids every single hour, and whilst there is no shiny boost, again, the odds are 1 in 20, so being able to do and collect a bunch of trainers during a raid hour, take down a lot of raid bosses, the odds of you getting a shiny are generally high. Depending on how many raids you do, usually most people are leaving raid hour with a shiny, so if you really want a shiny of a certain legendary, I would recommend trying to focus in on a raid hour for that Pokemon. Now, there is a special trick that not a lot of people talk about called the shiny glitch in Pokemon Go, which can really help you in not getting more shinies, but choosing what shiny you encounter. Let's first talk about Spotlight Hour. Say it is before Spotlight Hour and you encounter a shiny Pokemon. If you don't know when Spotlight Hour starts, it will take all the spawns on the map and it will switch them into that Spotlight Hour Pokemon. Some of them will disappear. There is the odds of that, the spawn disappearing. But how the shiny glitch works is if you encounter a shiny Pokemon before Spotlight Hour, you wait until Spotlight Hour starts, it will switch that Pokemon into the Spotlight Hour Pokemon, and that Spotlight Hour Pokemon will be shiny because that is the same Pokemon. The data in there that Pokemon, that spawn is going to be shiny is still there, so that Spotlight Hour Pokemon will be shiny. Now, of course, this won't work if the Spotlight Hour Pokemon cannot be shiny in Pokemon Go, but it can also work going out of Spotlight Hour. For example, at the end of Spotlight Hour, you find a shiny, you wait until it switches over, and then that Pokemon could end up spawning into a random shiny Pokemon. Again, there is the odds that it disappears or it turns into a Pokemon that can't be shiny, so it is risky, but it's great. Remember, spawns last around, I think, 30 to 45 minutes. So you do have to kind of do this near the end of Spotlight Hour to make sure that spawn just doesn't just despawn as is, but this can be a great trick. This trick can also be added on to other events. For example, Go Fest, Go Tours, wild area events where we have different rotating habitats. When the habitats rotate, all the spawns will change. So if you have a shiny encounter, you can wait till the habitat changes and then you can get a different shiny encounter. Really, the key is just don't catch it, wait till it switches. Bob's your uncle. Now, of course, you have no way of knowing what that Pokemon is going to turn into, and it is a risk, but it's great when you encounter a shiny Pokemon you already have that you don't really care about. In the in-person Go Fest as well, at the top of every single hour for 2 minutes, usually every single spawn is an unknown. So this can be a great strategy to guarantee you a shiny unknown by encountering a shiny Pokemon, waiting until the unknown 2 minutes start, and then switching, and it'll switch into an unknown and you have a shiny unknown. So yeah, overall, use this trick. It's a really big game changer and really just allows you to decide what shiny Pokemon you're going to encounter. Now, swinging back to encountering more Pokemon, I did forget to mention Palkia's Spacial Rend ability. If you have an Origin Palkia with the attack Spacial Rend, you can use this as an adventure effect for Palkia candies and Stardust. This will double your spawn radius from 40 meters to 80 meters for a set period of time. This, of course, leads you to seeing more Pokemon. The more Pokemon you see, the more Pokemon you can click, and the more times you're rolling that dice for the shinies. Again, at the end of the day, the more Pokemon you click, the higher odds of encountering a shiny you have. And of course, Palkia's Spacial Rend is a game changer. This is a very, very good strategy to use for Spotlight Hours, community days, large scale events like Global Go Fest, Go Tour, wild area event. You really want to have this activated because you just want to be clicking on as many Pokemon as you can. That's how you get the most amount of shinies. Finally, strategize when you're playing Pokemon Go for the best odds on shiny Pokemon. There's different events where Niantic will give shiny boosts to certain Pokemon. So following my channel here will update you when those events are, what Pokemon are shiny boosted to make sure you're clicking on the right Pokemon. Can be a great thing to do. Make sure to subscribe, but also check whether catching a Pokemon through raids, hatching eggs, field research tasks, might give you more of a shiny boost because Niantic have done that. For example, the Lunar New Year event includes a shiny boost for Ekans in the wild and for Nosepass in eggs. So making sure you know where you're encountering that Pokemon for those boosted shiny odds can be big. Finally, keep an eye out for raid days, hatch days, and research events because these have the 1 in 10 shiny odds, the best odds. So if you ever just want a quick, easy shiny in Pokemon Go, playing those 3-hour events is going to be your best way. I don't think I've ever seen anybody leave a raid day or one of these events that has done at least 10 encounters and not got a shiny. Of course, it's probably happened because that's not exactly how it works, but your odds are amazing. Now, shinies are amazing, but if you want to learn how to get more 100% IVs as well, check out this video, and check out this video. You'll probably enjoy that one as well. Appreciate y'all watching. Follow for more tips. Peace.